They wrote me off. I ain't right back, though. That's the problem. I ain't right back. Let's go.
Back in 2015, Geno Smith was literally knocked on the canvas. His football career was down for the count, but last night on Monday Night Football, dude finally got up off the mat. It was the first Monday Night Football game of the year, and looking at the rosters, didn't seem like the most compelling matchup. But while the game itself didn't seem promising, it was the storyline. That's what got people's attention. Seattle Seahawks great Russell Wilson returned to a place he called home for a decade. And while Russ's comeback ended up being a pretty solid game for him, it was actually another quarterback entirely who would stake his claim and steal the show. Cue the Wayne.
Yeah, you'll never no quitter, 'cause I'ma go get her.
The first half of last night's game had people wondering if the quarterbacks had switched bodies. And that's a fair question considering the fact that identity theft is the fastest growing crime in America. It's a new victim every 14 seconds. That's why I was happy to partner with today's video sponsor, Aura. Aura is an identity theft protection, fraud monitoring, VPN, password management, and an antivirus software all combined into one easy to use app. And you might have one or two of these services already, but if you ain't got all the tools, it's like padlocking the front door but leaving the back door just sitting wide open. Those who've had their identity stolen are usually shocked when it happens. Imagine trying to log into your email account one day only to see passwords have changed just hours ago, and then you start getting them notifications. Activity from your bank, credit cards, your crypto investments, whatever it is. That's the terrifying reality for so many people. Thankfully, Aura monitors the dark web for your emails, passwords, and social security numbers, and they send alerts fast straight to your phone. The first time I worked with Aura a few months back, they found my info on the dark web in like 4 or 5 different places, but made it easy for me to rectify those situations and therefore protect myself and my family. So if you want to protect you and yours from identity theft, visit aura.com/FlemLo, which is linked in the description. And if you sign up right now, Aura's gonna give you a 2-week free trial when you use my link so you can see for yourself how many times Aura finds your information out on the dark web. So if you sign up, be sure to let me know down in the comments if your personal info have been compromised. One thing I can guarantee is that you will not regret checking. Shout out to Aura once again for sponsoring the video. Without further ado, let's get back to it. Geno Smith traveled a long up and down road in his football career. As a high school junior, dude was an Elite 11 participant, and as a senior, he finished second in the state in the Mr. Florida voting, narrowly losing out to AJ Graham. Geno would have the far better college career though. He ultimately turned down an offer to attend Alabama and instead chose West Virginia, where dude had massive success. His last 2 years was off the charts statistically, over 4,000 passing yards in both. Never threw double-digit picks. Dude was cooking for real. He even had a game where he threw for 8 touchdown passes and 0 picks versus number 25 ranked Baylor. But when he sat in the green room on draft night, things didn't really go as well as he'd hoped. Dude was so embarrassed that he slid completely out of the first round. Immediately following the draft, he fired his agent. He was like, "I blame you for all of this." But many teams said the reason he actually slid down in a pretty weak quarterback class at that was basically just because he handled the draft process as a whole in, a poor fashion. They said he had a bad attitude in draft meetings, and he always did seem to have a little bit of a personality issue. As early in his career, he was talented, but in the locker room, he wasn't the leader that guys wanted to follow. You know how scouts and coaches be saying stuff like, he's just got a presence about him when he walks into a room? Well, apparently Geno Smith, despite a few issues on the field as well, just came up extremely small in the leadership presence category, Here's a couple quotes. All these other players who were in there talking to the coaches, trying to get to know people, and he was over there by himself. That's not what you want out of your quarterback. Another guy said, he doesn't have much presence, not much of a leader. I don't think he's a bad person, but that's not enough to be a quarterback in this league. But the dude was talented, so somebody was going to take a shot on him. The Jets decided it was worth a second-round gamble. So they drafted him, inserted him into the locker room, and just let nature take over. Then after 2 mediocre seasons as the starter, Geno Smith, starting quarterback, second round pick, gets punched in the face by a 6th round pick. It's unheard of, really. Generally, a low draft pick is gonna stay far, far away from, the quarterback or any high draft pick. Like, they know how fragile their roster spot is. But basically, Geno was such an agitator that the 6th round pick just could not take it anymore. So I did a full video on this back in 2018, but here's a quick recap. Essentially, a dude named IK and Paulie, Geno's teammate back in 2015, asked his quarterback if he would attend the camp that IK was throwing for the kids back in his hometown. Geno says, yes, I'll be there. IK says great, and he's extremely excited. He gets these t-shirts made up with Geno's face on them, promotes the camp. We got a real NFL quarterback gonna come down here and work with these kids. IK, again, a 6th round pick, even put up $600 to cover Geno's travel. But when the day of the camp came, Geno doesn't show up, and he doesn't even call to say that he's not gonna make it or ever give any reason as to why he didn't make it. Now, the thing that came out later was that somebody close to Geno had an accident either that day or maybe the day before, and that's the reason he couldn't make it. But that information never made it to IK because basically Geno is just kind of an... And it seemed like Geno was really just being a jerk at the time, because if that was the legitimate reason, he could have just said that. Instead, he opted to just not give an explanation at all. So with Geno not showing up, the 6th round pick was embarrassed in his hometown, had to deal with angry parents and disappointed kids, and on top of that, he's out of $600. So the next time he sees Geno in the locker room, he asks him to reimburse the $600. Like, that's the least you can do, Geno's 2nd round pick could have easily paid the man money back, but he just decided not to. Not only did he decide not to pay the man his money back, it became a running joke in the locker room. So like over the next month, IK, the 6th round pick, is just catching flack from his teammates. Everybody's laughing. They think it's hilarious that Geno just stuck him up for the $600 and wouldn't pay it back. So a whole month passes, and this one day, IK is just fed up. He walks up to Geno. He says, bro, I need my $600. And Geno is like, he stops and he puts his hand in his face and he say, bruh, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he essentially says, first and foremost, that $600 ain't nothing but chump change. And second off, I ain't paying nothing back. What you gonna do about it? At this point, IK literally only has one choice. And, from a legal standpoint, maybe not. From a stand on the team standpoint, maybe not. But from a man standpoint, he makes the right decision. He punches Geno in the face. So, bop! He punches him in the face and busts Geno's jaw. And that decision to not pay his teammate back that $600 changed Geno Smith's entire career. It was looking like the pre-draft rumors were true. What kind of leader stands his teammate up and then doesn't even offer an explanation, and then refuses to make the peace, even though it would have been extremely easy to either pay the man the $600, take the man out for dinner, do something, bro. Just make it up to the dude. So Geno Smith would end up missing 6 to 10 weeks with a broken jaw. And while he was out, old contract year Ryan Fitzpatrick slides in and takes his starting job. So even when Geno comes back and he's healthy, now he's the backup. That was in 2015, and Geno Smith wouldn't become like the regular starter on the team again until this past Monday night. So from 2015 to 2020, Geno Smith was basically not heard from, but he continued to work in the background, and by 2021, 6 years after the broken jaw, dude finally got another shot at some real playing time when Russell Wilson injured his finger. In 4 games, Geno threw for 700 yards, 5 touchdowns, and only 1 pick, playing pretty well and seeming to have matured a bit. So when Russ told Ciara, let's ride to Denver, all Geno had to do was beat out Drew Lock for the starting job, and Geno had the upper hand because he was by far the more experienced quarterback, and he'd already spent time in the system and had actually started games there. So he won the starting job and once again graced our television screens on Monday Night Football. Like I said, the whole build-up was all about Russ, the prodigal son, returning home, but that changed fast as Geno opened up the game going 12 for 12 for 98 yards and a touchdown. I couldn't believe what I was watching. The man completed 12 straight passes, and some of those throws were some big boy throws, like real talk, like elite quarterback-esque type throws. I don't know how often Geno can just pull that out of his bag, but he found it that night. He continued to ball out for the entire first half, going into halftime completing 17 of 18 passes for 164 yards, 2 touchdowns, and even more importantly, the lead. It was one of the better halves of football we've seen on Monday night, and while he came back down to earth in the second half, the momentum he built up for the squad carried over, and the CPU decided that no matter what, user Russell Wilson was not winning this game. The sliders didn't matter. He could have restarted this thing 5 times. It did not matter that night. The crowd was already crazy loud from the very beginning, as football is obviously a passionate sport, and they felt, okay, Russ, you decided to leave us. It's like a bad divorce. And the way Geno Smith just balled out in the first half continued to feed the crowd life, and it was crazy to watch the 12s themselves now finally turn the other way and affect Russell Wilson. It was crazy how many delay of game penalties they had, and even times where they didn't get the penalty, it was coming right down to a second as he was trying to communicate with everybody, but it was so damn loud in his week 1 on a new team. So it was tough for Russ. So if only for one night, hell, if only for one half, West Virginia Geno was back as he proceeded to snatch the mic from the Seahawks' former lead singer.